Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Claims Never Sleep, our first recording of the new year. And I'm joined by Jen, my co-host. How you doing?
Good. I'm very excited about this episode today. We talk a little bit about emotional intelligence, and I am so excited for everyone to hear from her because she just has so much wisdom and so much to say.
I know. And like kind of a hot topic for you at the moment. And it really like hits I think it hits home a little bit because you're going to be speaking on it at a few conferences coming up this year.
Yes, she's going to be a great guide for me. We could tell that she was a psych major within the first 10 minutes of hearing her speak. She's just so intelligent and just has so much emotional intelligence herself.
Yes. Yes. And so we're joined by Courtney Allen today. And Courtney, you know, is a lawyer, but then moved over to claims, or kind of went right into claims, straight out of school, and just really is able to connect with claimants on like a personal level and an emotional level. And so that's why, we talk a lot about emotional intelligence today. So you're in for a treat. So with that, let's bring her in.
This is the Claims Never Sleep podcast, presented by Cruiser Mitchell, with your host, Meghan Henry.
Good afternoon, Courtney. Welcome to this episode of Claims Never Sleep. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you because I already know this is going to be good because I've already messed up once. We started this podcast. I didn't press record. So we're starting again. We talked for like 20 minutes before this even started, just chit chat. So I think everyone's in for a treat today. So Courtney, we had talked before the holidays. I think you and Jen actually had connected on LinkedIn a while back, and she was like, "We have to have Courtney on." And we sat down and we had a great conversation. I think we talked for almost an hour. I think last time when we chatted. And before we hop in, and I know you're familiar with the podcast, and I kind of gave you some background, but you're a lawyer by trade, right? So how was your path, or what was your path into law school? Like, did you always think you're going to go to law school, or were you like me? And I think Jen, I don't remember. We kind of went to law school because we're like, what else are we going to do with ourselves?
Yeah, I did not grow up wanting to be an attorney. I wanted to be a veterinarian, love animals. They can't argue with you. So, you go from not being able to argue to arguing all the time. And so I found myself in law school and really just didn't know exactly where I wanted to go with it. Just knew that I wanted to help people in some way, shape, or form. I do love people. I'm a people person, and just knowing our world and the way things are, that there's always opportunity to help other people.
Mm-hmm. So when you get into law school and you're there, and you have this goal of wanting to help people, so then what did you end up doing when you graduated?
Yeah, so when I graduated, the market was down. Unfortunately, there weren't a lot of opportunities. So the best gift that I gave to myself was the gift of being open-minded. And I had worked as a paralegal for several years before law school, during law school, experience in several different areas. So when I graduated, I clerked for the state of Connecticut for a year. It was a courthouse that oversaw criminal matters, housing matters, small claims, so a bunch of different areas. And it really gave me some time to learn, understand if those were areas I wanted to pursue. And I actually ended up going back to workers' comp, which was one of the areas that I had learned about and worked in when I was a paralegal. So I went to workers' comp at Travelers Insurance, and that's really where my insurance career started.
And something we hear a lot about when we have guests on is like coming out and working for a place like Travelers or some other larger carriers is the robust like training programs that they have. And did you find like that was like a good step into the insurance world because you had like a big like a backing of a very large carrier that is really putting, not that small carriers aren't, but what we have, the themes that we've seen is the larger carriers tend to have more robust training programs. Was that your experience?
It was, and thank God they did, because I went into that job. I was so confident. I had done workers' comp, like I said, for several years in a couple different firms, felt good about it. Got to the insurance side of things and realized that I knew nothing. I felt like I was starting from scratch. So Travelers did have a lot of programs at the time. I took every class I could get into. They had waiting lists for classes. So I signed myself up, took as many as I could, just so I could hit the ground running in my career. I was really determined to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could, because I was anxious to really get into the meat of the role.
It's funny that you being from Connecticut, I mean, that's how I ended up in claims, is because I moved to Connecticut and I was like, well, here I am in the world of insurance. But there aren't as many guests who kind of grew up in that area or live in that area as I would imagine. But Meghan also, has her Connecticut roots. And I do find that it does kind of compel people, or it's like a vortex you get sucked into when you lived in the state.
You do. My dad was in insurance. Granted, he was in finance. I thought it was very boring growing up. I'm like, I will never do that. That is so boring. And here I am in insurance, and my sister is in insurance. She's at Travelers. I have since left, but she's still there, and we're an insurance family in Connecticut.
I remember one of my old coworkers, his wife was an OBGYN, and his kids would say, Mommy delivers babies and Dad works in some building.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, as kids, that's kind of our perspective, right, of the insurance world. But when you were in law school, were there any sort of like insurance tracks? Because I don't see that in many law schools. I didn't know if in Connecticut, if it's a little different.
There wasn't. And so I went to law school just over the line. I actually went to Western New England University in Springfield, Massachusetts, but it's right there. It's right over the Connecticut line. And
Winnick.
We knew now because it's not college anymore. It's university. That was the joke. That was the joke when I was there. But they, obviously a lot of people live in Connecticut because it is so close. And I was surprised to find that there really wasn't any type of insurance track. With just being so close to the insurance capital of the world, you would have thought there would be, but I think at the time there was maybe one insurance class, and that was about it. So I hope that's changed for a lot of law schools, not just Winnick, but a lot of the law schools, because insurance is so widespread, and even in civil suits, sometimes even criminal suits, it can involve insurance. And I think attorneys who don't know about it, they don't do a deep dive in it, it's a disadvantage to their practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So okay, so you get into Travelers, and you're in the world of comp, and I think you've stayed in the world of comp, right?
Mm-hmm. I have.
So what is it for you about comp? And I think I know the answer, but I'm going to let you answer it, that draws you in and keeps you there.
Yeah. So, workers' comp it's one of those things that can happen in life, right? You have a workplace injury, and, depending on the injury, it can be life-altering. When I was working for Travelers, I was in the major case unit. So we dealt with claims that were catastrophic in nature: spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, burns, major amputations, things like that. So the chances of that person going back to work was very slim. So not only is it impactful just on the person who was injured, the injured worker, but oftentimes they have a family, they have a spouse. Maybe the spouse wasn't working because they were taking care of the children. Maybe the children are really young. So there's a lot of downstream effects that just aren't apparent when we think about workers' comp. Yes, there's the injury. Yes, there's wage benefits that you pay, but there's so many other aspects to lifestyle and to that person's future that need to be considered. So, going back to caring about people, and that's why I am where I am. Also caring about those other people who we don't speak to every day. We generally call the injured worker to say, hey, you have a doctor's appointment coming up, but we don't think about the family. We don't think about the spouse that has to drive them there, or, also getting the kids off to school for the day or college. What does that look like? They may have been saving for their kids' future, and that has been put on hold. So there's a lot of things that go into it. And part of what I love, what I do today at CorVel, is leading an organization that keeps people first and that keeps that in mind. There are other things going on that we don't have to do, but we need to do to handle these types of claims compassionately.
Yeah. And then you really got into, you came into this wanting to help people, and here you are. That's exactly what you're doing. But if you were to look back, do you think your younger self thought that the Courtney who wanted to help people would end up working for an insurance company doing workers' comp claims?
Probably not. Probably not.
But you're still doing your goal. It's just probably not in the vision.
Not at all. And it's funny because I have an 8-year-old daughter, and a couple of years ago, someone asked her, what does your mom do for work? And she said, oh, my mom builds wheelchairs for people who have had spinal cord injuries. And I'm like, not quite, but that sounds exciting too. But
I help them get to their wheelchair.
The goal. Exactly. Right.
I don't have much experience with workers' comp. That's the one area that I really never dove into. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, do you think that workers' comp has the same kind of reputational issues that other types of insurance have, as far as so many people we have on the podcast went into claims to help people, but a lot of times they feel like there's so much backlash against the insurance companies. I mean, do you find that you have that same experience in the workers' comp area?
I do. So I spend part of my time doing research, and I personally will read not just reviews about CorVel. I will look at other insurance companies. I'll look at TPAs. I want to know what people are saying. I want to know what the experience is, because right now, especially, is a very tumultuous time in the insurance world, and I want to help make that better. And I think the way to do that is to bring more understanding to how workers' comp works. I've read many things online that said, workers' comp denied my surgery and I can't get back to work. Workers' comp denied more physical therapy. They denied my medication. And there's always a reason why. So I think, and this is what I tell my adjusters all the time, taking a few extra minutes to explain the why is everything. So there's two very different ways to handle it. You get a call from an injured worker. They say, you denied my medication. I need my medication. What's going on? This is in connection to my work injury. Why haven't you approved it? And the adjuster says, well, it got denied by utilization review and I can't approve it. And I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. I can't pay for it. If it was denied, that's sorry. I'm sorry, hangs up the phone. Yeah. There's another very different interaction with that same set of facts. They call, you denied my medication. I need it. That's for my workers' comp claim that you've accepted. What's going on? Okay, Mr. Jones, let me take a look at it. Let me see what happened here. Okay, so that refill is going to require another doctor's visit. I can absolutely get that scheduled for you. Let me see when the doctor's next appointment is. I will get that in. I understand that you're in pain. I want to help you. to help you. So it's not always about telling people what they want to hear. It's about the way we handle things, and step by step, phone call by phone call, email by email, interaction by interaction. That's how we heal the connection that we have with people. That's how we bring the level of anger down, and to let people know that we care about them. You're not just a claim in our system. We know this horrible thing has happened to you, whether it's a minor injury or a major injury. They're still affect your day-to-day life, and people are stressed out enough. They shouldn't have to call us and get even more stressed out. So that's really what we focus on, is our interactions with people, not just giving them what they want, but respecting them enough to explain the process.
Well, and it's also being cognizant of this individual likely has not had to go through this before, so they are clueless. Like, they don't know the process. They just know they are in pain and they're injured and they can't go to work and their income is affected and they're probably scared and anxious. And to have someone on the other end of the line to kind of understand what they're going through and give them a helping hand to figure out the next steps is a probably very welcome on their end, and goes against that mentality that everyone says, oh, the insurance companies are just like only in it for their money and they want to deny the claims. And it's like the actual opposite of that.
Exactly. And just slowing down and taking the time to hear someone out. Adjusters, supervisors, very, very busy. They have a full day ahead of them. So sometimes when you tell them to take another minute or two on the phone with someone, they're like, I know, but I had all these other things that were due. I get it, right? We can't add hours to the day, and we certainly don't want to ask people to work 80 hours a week. That's, that we need balance there. But just taking a couple extra minutes to explain something to someone, they're not going to have that same question next time. They're going to understand. So if something else gets denied down the road, it's going to be a quicker conversation. I got to get you, scheduled again to see your doctor, and then we should be able to get it approved. They will understand that now because you took the time to explain it to them.
Yeah. And so that, like, your role and your reactions, I don't know if reactions is the right word, but is that something that's innate to you, or was that part of kind of your training process? Or it could be probably a little bit of both, but it seems to me like that's probably innate to your personality, but there was training that built on it.
That's exactly it. It's really this is who I am. You see what you get. And I was raised where treat others the way you would want to be treated, and I try to keep that in mind every day. And that has really been the basis for my work. But certainly I've had training over the years to help with specific ways to help turn the conversation from, maybe one that's very tense, very angry, to one that's a little bit better. How can we bring the emotions down just a little bit so we can have a conversation? And sometimes it's postponing the conversation. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, you're just not going to get through to someone. And when that happens, I say, hey, give them a night to cool down, unless it's, something emergent that we need to talk about. Ask them when they're free tomorrow. Plan a call, get something on the calendar, just 15 minutes, touch base. They would have had time to have cooled down. Or maybe even for yourself, maybe you need some time, because we've had instances where we've had very, very irate parties on the phone, not just injured workers. Sometimes they're attorneys, sometimes medical offices. We're all human. So sometimes we have those moments, and the best thing to do is to just not engage. It's just to bring it down, because once you've engaged, you come off very combative. So they'll remember that future conversations. Oh, I have to call her back. She's very argumentative. And it doesn't work out. So coming from a place where you're understanding, you're slow, you don't let emotions get the best of you, and knowing if you have someone, especially an injured worker, who is coming off very upset, very angry, knowing that, like you said, Meghan, they're scared, where they're not getting paid. Who knows when they're going to go back to work? Who knows if they can go back to that job? So just keeping that in mind really helps to keep the focus on compassionate customer service.
But do you find, though, that sometimes it can be very mentally exhausting for you to always have to be the even, like Courtney's not allowed to lose her cool, and that's okay. But like it has to be mentally exhausting at times to always just be the reasonable mind at all times.
It is, right? I think that would drain anyone. And so for me, sometimes I just have to take a break. Sometimes I've got to walk around the neighborhood, move a meeting 30 minutes so I can just get out and cool down, take a Peloton ride, do whatever you have to do. Sometimes for me, if I can't get outside for whatever reason, or I don't have enough time to exercise, I will go and listen to one or two of my favorite songs and just decompress. And there's research that backs that. Hearing favorite music has a pretty immediate impact on mood. So, I try to keep that in mind. And if you're having a day, it's better to step away and come back when you're ready to handle it, both for you and who you're interacting with.
Yeah.
What was your undergrad major? Were you like a psych major or something along those lines?
Psychology. Yeah. How'd you know?
Just listening to everything you say, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but just listening to like how you do research and on not only your company, on other companies, I just kind of wonder like what is your ultimate goal? I mean, do you want to be like running a claims department at some, or I guess like where you just seem to have so much interest in like in the why and the how, and not in addition to like the daily everyday things.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a specific goal with regards to, a position that I see myself in someday, but what I want to do, what my ultimate goal is in my career, is to improve the way the insurance industry is seen, and help repair that relationship. And I know, Meghan and Jen, you both know, when you become a lawyer and you're sworn in, part of your swearing is that you will, ethically handle the law and treat people with respect. And that's really what I want for insurance. I really want to bridge the gap, with the fact that people hate insurance. They hate insurance. And everyone has had a horrible experience with getting something approved, under their auto policy, getting their car repaired, trying to get something on their house repaired, and so we've all had those experiences. Me, myself, I had car damage once when someone hit me and it wasn't my fault at all. And I'm arguing with the insurance company, and I'm like, hey, my claim, please. And so, I really want to bridge that gap. It's really my goal. I want to bridge it for injured workers. I want to bridge it for attorneys, brokers, adjusters, anyone in this field, because insurance is such a good thing, but it has a really bad rap.
It does.
And I would love to just bring the whole industry up.
I know, and this is something. It's another very common theme that we hear, is that the reputation that insurance has, but also the common theme is everyone's like, but everyone wants to change it. Like, we have yet to talk to anyone that's like, it's good, we're just gonna keep on going with that. Like, every single claims professional we talk to on this program says insurance gets a bad rep, and we want it to be better. And I honestly think the only way it's going to get better is by all of you, all claims professionals having that same mentality, because it's the only way it's gonna change. Like, I mean, what are we going to have, like a giant conference? Be like, let's change the messaging. No, it sounds like the messaging's already there. It just has to, like, the dominoes kind of have to keep falling.
They have to keep falling. I am talking to the team daily, weekly, monthly about our interactions with everyone. And when I say customers, it's not just the injured workers, it's not just our accounts, it's everyone. It is the attorneys, it is the medical offices, the provider offices, it's pharmacies, like it's absolutely everyone that we interact with. And that's the only way things are going to get better. And just on the flip side of that too, we've all had experiences with companies or whoever it is, and like they did shoddy work, or we weren't happy with the outcome, or we didn't get what we want, but the people that we interacted with were awesome. So it's hard to say something about it. You're like, yeah, they didn't, fix my issue, but they were kind, they listened, they tried. You felt you felt like it was a genuine effort. And we're not always going to get perfect results. Things are going to happen. Sometimes we're going to drop the ball. But building those relationships is really important. You're more easily forgiven if you're respected. And I think that really would go a long way in our industry.
Yeah. and I also think kind of what you're saying goes with the whole human side of it as well. Like you're when someone has a comp claim and they're coming to the carrier, you're not a bot, you're not a robot, and you're not an entity, right? You're an individual and you're human. And I think feeling that the human side is hearing you and is there, and like you have that sense of like, okay, yes, shit is messy for me at the moment, but Courtney or someone on your team is listening to my concerns and hearing me and trying to help me. They might not be able to snap their fingers and get me what I need right now, but at least I feel heard and things are in motion.
That's exactly it, Megan. And what you said without saying it was, it's not giving people necessarily what they want, but about making them feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. And sometimes just letting just hearing them out, that's all they want. They just want someone to hear how upset they are. And we're not all therapists. We don't all have psychology degrees. Even those that do aren't best suited always for the role of a therapist. But just sitting down as a friend, just taking a 5-minute phone call, hearing what's going on, giving an honest opinion, an honest statement about what you're going to do, how you're going to try to fix it. I'm not sure, but I will be reaching out to my supervisor. We have a call in 10 minutes. I'm adding that to my list right now. I will circle back with you after I've had a chance to run it by her. That makes you feel good, makes you feel like you are not, didn't only hear me, but you're actually doing something for me, which we are paid to do that. And we do have an ethical responsibility to handle your claim appropriately.
So what do you find, or what do you hear from like your team as to like, what do they struggle with? Is it is the struggle, the emotional side of claimants, or is it something different, or a variety of things? It could be many things.
Yeah, there's always those struggles. You have one injured worker in particular. Maybe they're not angry, but they call a lot. And because we have those, some people, especially if their injury is old, it's maybe it's 5, 6, 7 years, maybe older, and they're still out of work. Sometimes their entire life revolves around the claim. Yes. And they've fallen out of their social circle because they don't go into work anymore. Maybe they're in pain, so they don't go out with friends anymore. They don't see their family anymore. So, Mr. Adjuster, that's you who they're going to talk to. And, that can be really time consuming.
Yes.
our rule here is if you get a phone call, it has to be returned within 24 hours. That's our rule. That's difficult if you get a call every single day, and especially if that person wants to talk for a while. That's hard.
Yes.
That's a huge chunk of your day. So we've talked about ways to politely end the conversation, things like that. We've even have had a couple of adjusters. We've had conversations about even scheduling calls, which maybe that's not preferred, but maybe if they know they have a call on the calendar, they're not going to call you every day. Maybe it's just once a week on Wednesday at, from 12 to 12:30. And then after that, you can say you have another meeting and move on. But sometimes we do need those tips and tricks because it can be a time suck. And, we don't want to do that to any of our staff. We know they're busy. So just finding ways, to handle the influx of calls and communications is generally the way. And, sometimes it's not the same. Sometimes one way works for one person and it works, different way for different person. So just kind of finding out what's working and what's not.
Yeah, because I imagine you have you have a claimant who's used to going to work every day, and all of a sudden they're stuck at home, right? And they probably there's a hyperfixation on what's going on with them in the status. So they're like, well, Courtney's here. I'm gonna call Courtney. Maybe Courtney will tell me.
Yeah, and you're right. They're sitting home. They're thinking about their claim.
Yes. And you should be too, constantly.
Trust me, sometimes I'm thinking about your claim at 2 a.m. Don't worry about it.
You should call them at 2 a.m.
How big of a struggle is dealing with other insurance? Because I imagine that comes up a lot in workers' comp cases, like with either an auto or a liability policy, whereas probably more than in other areas of insurance. And does that kind of cause some no, not my responsibility, your responsibility, and then it kind of clogs it up?
That's a great question. As far as working with other insurance companies, other TPAs, generally that relationship is pretty good. And I think it's good because, I'm the work comp adjuster, you're the auto adjuster. We're just trying to do our jobs. Just let's figure this out. But sometimes, when there's disputes, it will go into litigation. And that's where you guys come in and you guys get to argue for us in court. And, sometimes it can get very complicated. Thinking about workers' comp and maybe like asbestos, for example. So in Connecticut, Connecticut's very interesting because it will split per year. So if you have different insurance carriers, what you have to do is go out and determine the years of coverage, and then you have to apportion it. And if you've got 10 carriers, that could be quite the trick. And also, getting everybody to one hearing, because there will be one hearing in Connecticut. So you need to send a rep from every carrier. So that can get a little complicated. But what I have found between insurance companies, between TPAs, that communication is actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many of your cases are in litigation versus, just kind of handled in-house?
I'm not sure exactly what our rate is right now, to be honest. It has fluctuated positively towards less litigated files, actually, as we've done a better job with our customer service, which is really interesting. And what I tend to credit that to is the fact that when you build a relationship with someone who has been injured at work, they trust you. They see you hearing them. They hear you hearing them. They see you working their file. They see you answering calls and emails, and they feel taken care of. And building that rapport with someone, I mean, it's great if we can avoid litigation. Obviously, that's great because there's cost savings on the file for our clients. But litigation is also stressful, as you both know, and it's stressful on the injured worker. And so being able to avoid that at the end of the day more positively impacts the injured worker. So That's my advice, regardless of whether, the litigation rate is improved or not, because there's just so many other benefits to building that relationship with the injured worker.
Yeah. And I imagine that though the relationship can become confusing once counsel's involved, because now you had a direct contact and direct relation with this claimant, and now that's cut off, and
and they still call. They call, and
yeah, that's weird.
it's hard. I mean,
yeah.
We can answer basic questions. Where's my check? When's the next hearing? Obviously anything substantive we have to send back to their attorney. And sometimes they get upset because they're like, my attorney doesn't call me back, and I'm sorry, that doesn't change the fact that you're represented, and we really can't talk to you.
Maybe you picked the wrong person.
Might have picked the wrong person. For sure.
It's interesting. We talk a lot about negotiation at our firm because we try actually not to let it get anything to trial. We try to resolve things. And one of the traits that we tell people you need to have to be good at your job is emotional intelligence. And I just keep hearing from you about how much emotional intelligence you and your team has. And it seems like it's true, right? Like if you just listen to a person and understand what they're going through, and you can help them resolve it, and it doesn't need to get into litigation. It doesn't need to be adversarial. Everyone can just kind of work together to find a resolution. And so I think that you're kind of living proof of how well emotional intelligence does for taking care of claims.
Yeah. And honestly, selfishly, at the end of the day, having a high EQ makes your day better, makes your day easier. You have a better understanding of how your interactions with people, how that affects them, their interactions with you. And we talk about EQ all the time. Last year, we actually, we did mini, we call them coffee break sessions. Monday morning, I get the leadership team together. We talk about leadership principles that are important. And we actually went over the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence, and we had some great conversations, and we really had some light bulb moments, not even just with injured workers, but with our own team and our own direct reports. And we're like, oh, now that we're talking about this, I didn't even realize. And so that's improved our relationships with our internal employees. And by improving that relationship, our external relationships are improved. So it's contagious. It's a good thing for all of us to have it. And again, at the end of the day, I hope someday, it will help to elevate the insurance industry to get to a more positive place.
So we're going to have to talk after the podcast, because I'm actually presenting on 2 panels at conferences coming up on emotional intelligence and handling claims.
Love it.
Someone else has kind of developed the structure, but asked me to come on the panel. And so I would love to get your input on some stuff, because it really seems as if you have spent a lot of time kind of developing this, and it's working. You've implemented it and it's working.
I would love to chat some more. One of my favorite topics.
Yeah.
So, but with that, do you feel as though it's hard to teach emotional intelligence? If someone is already has it, right? You can improve on their skill, but there are people who lack it, and maybe the people who lack it aren't in this career because it might not be the best fit for them. But I'm sure you've seen that as well. You're going, you have these seminars, and you're all in because you already appear to be very emotionally intelligent. But
I try.
There's probably others who aren't. So what's been your experience with that when you find folks that just maybe it's just not clicking?
Well, and you're right. So everything, all the research, all the books that I've read on emotional intelligence, you kind of either have it or you don't.
Right.
But I like what you said about you can polish it, and that's really what it is. You can clean up what it is that you have. So that's always the first goal. Polishing our skills so we can bring our best selves to work every day. For those that don't, they just don't have the level that is really needed for this job. First and foremost, it's important to understand that they can't give me what they don't have. They can't. And it's not fair for me to ask them for something that they don't have. And so one of my goals is not just to provide compassionate, caring customer service and customer interactions. It's internal facing. It's helping our employees become the best they can be. And if this isn't the role for them, it's not the role for them. And it's totally fine. We have had many movements in the 2 years that I've been at CorVel. We've had different levels of movement. So we've had adjusters who have gone on to be supervisors, and they were like, absolutely not, and they go back. And I encourage that, because how are you going to know something doesn't work out if you don't try it? Like, kudos to you. You're a great employee. I want to keep you. Let's work something out. But sometimes it's just not going to work. Even, if you're an adjuster, maybe you've been an adjuster for 10 or 15 years. This isn't a new career for you. That can be scary, because you're delivering feedback to someone and they're like, well, what are you talking about? This is my career. But one thing we really try hard to do is there a better role at CorVel that for you? And it's a win-win, because they're happy, they're succeeding, and CorVel is getting the benefit of their continued employment and their performance in their new role. And we've had that. We've had adjusters go to account management. We've had account managers go to compliance roles. So truly, we will help our employees to pursue what they want to pursue and what best suits their their qualities and what they bring to the table. And sometimes it can be a difficult conversation. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes you go to someone and you're like, you're not hitting your marks, or, you have a lot of complaints from outside people, like what's going on. And, they might think that they're doing a good job. So it's a careful conversation, but keeping that compassion to it, knowing that you're trying to help them. It won't always turn out, sunshine and rainbows at the end, but that's important to have the conversation. And I think we owe it to people, to be honest.
And I also think it's important to recognize people's strengths and not try to put someone with a strength in one area in an area that their strength isn't going to help them. I've always believed this, that in like the legal world, at like a law firm, you have folks who are naturally good at marketing. You have folks that are like worker bees, and they are the people who are going to put their head down and they're going to crank out those coverage opinions or crank out that appellate brief or whatever it is. And then you have people who are great at depth, great at trial, but are terrible at marketing. And it's important to recognize people's strengths and not put, the person who just wants to sit behind their computer and write a brief and be like, hey, I'm going to take you to this dinner and you have to talk to all these people, and they'd rather die. It's important to recognize strengths. Not to say that you shouldn't step outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes you have to do things, you don't want to, you're not good at, or you don't feel you're good at, but you also shouldn't be expecting certain things of people when their strengths are in different areas, and putting them in the areas where they excel.
Exactly. And this is why I tell my leaders, it's so important to know your people, know what their strengths are, know what they're working on. And so because we have projects all the time, different things we have to get done. It's got to go to someone who can help us out. We have a deadline coming up, and really figure out who best to give this to. I want it, if it's something that involves data and spreadsheets and Excel workbooks, I want to give it to someone who likes that, or who's at least good at it, because I used to be horrible at Excel, and any documents would come over in Excel and I'm like, I'm not even opening this. I have no business being on this email. But now I'm at a point where I've learned Excel. I'm pretty comfortable in it. So I learned that skill, that's fine. But if I didn't, or if I couldn't for whatever reason, that would be important for my manager to know. Don't give me anything in Excel, or don't give me anything with data. So knowing your people, you have responsibility as their leader to set them up for success. And that first step is knowing who they are, and knowing where they fall.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny. Like our associate, who's amazing, but she doesn't like peopling a whole lot. and we have this new robust training program, and I remember when we heard about it, Jen and I were talking, I was like, do we have to send her to this, because she'll kill us? And then when the email came, she's like, do I need to go to this? I was like, only if you want to. She's like, it sounds like a lot of peopling. I was like, it's a lot of peopling, and it's probably not your cup of tea. But if you want to go, you can go. But I'm not going to force you to people with if you don't want to people.
Well, and that, I mean, that's such a beautiful example of knowing, someone's strengths and what their goals are. And if she doesn't need that for her job because she has this, this area of the law that doesn't involve the peopling, that's great. Why torture her? Why? And honestly, why waste her time? Because that's not her goal. That's not what she's pursuing. And what I find just in general, and I'm not talking about any specific company, there's always a lot of ongoing training that's needed for jobs, and a lot of it is, as we all know, it's for legal purposes. We need to say that they've done these trainings. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are HR trainings, so you have to take them. That's the end of the story. But some of these trainings are trainings that aren't necessarily, like, they're technically based in the job, but it's not for the job that you're doing. And I've taken these types of trainings for years, and I'm like, I'm not a nurse case manager. Why am I taking a training on being a nurse? But it's something they want done. And sometimes it's good to know what other jobs, what goes into that. It helps us to better partner. But I think it's important to balance the time that it takes. And if it's not something in your job, that's important to really just weigh.
Yes, I remember taking the adjuster exam, and I was only handling professional lines, so like EPL and D&O. And I got into that exam, and I was asking all these like property and workers' comp and homeowners questions, and I was like, I have no idea. So it is kind of crazy that like there's this that exam encompasses absolutely everything, and for the most part, like you're not going to move out of like your little area of comfort zone.
Yeah, it's also like the bar exam that does the same exact thing.
Oh, I know.
I thought the adjuster exam was worse.
Did you?
I passed by 1 point.
Well, that's good. You didn't have to retake it.
Yeah.
I also, as an aside, I also found out I was pregnant that day, so I think it kind of, from my first.
Wow.
So I think it threw me off a little bit, but
yeah,
still.
You had some other things on your mind. You're like, is it kicking? At the beginning, you like feel like every little like bubble. You're like, do I feel different?
Yeah. All right. No wine, guys. No wine. Water only. Water only, and the best prenatal vitamin out there. Let's go. Day one.
I know, and the scare over cheese. Like, can I eat brie? Am I allowed?
I always joke about my kids. I have 3, and my first child, when she was born, and I made all of her food homemade. Like, she never ate jarred food. It was like organic from a farm. And then the second one, I got like the better jarred food. Like I went to Whole Foods. My third, by the time he was 2, I remember the one day there was an ice cream truck, and he was licking sprinkles off of somebody's driveway while the other kids were waiting for the ice cream. I was like, that's like the progression.
It does go that way, doesn't it?
It does.
Thinking back on my own experience here, yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Like, even like my younger is like, how come you don't have like those monthly pictures of me when I was a baby? I was like, oh yeah, I didn't have time for that anymore.
Like, listen, I had to drop you off at daycare. Listen,
just be glad there's pictures in general.
Somebody this morning asked me if I remembered something that happened in like 2015, and I was like, I don't remember anything from 2012 to 2016. Like, it didn't happen.
Yep.
3 kids. That's it.
There's photos on my camera roll, so I existed during that time period, but I can't tell you what happened.
No. And what's crazy to me at that point too, I was also commuting into like Philly every like 4 days a week. I'm like, how on earth did I manage that whole thing? I'm like, I don't even leave my house now, and that's like if I have to like do something extra, it's like, oh, you might need to go to the bank today. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. I don't know how that's gonna fit in.
I was just talking about something that this weekend. Like I look back to like when I had 3, 4 and under and I was still working full time and out of the house. And I was like, how did I do that?
How?
It's just
how. I know. I'm the same way. No idea. None.
Yeah, like we were out and we like left the house by like 7 or 6:45 in full clothes, like dressed heels.
Yeah.
Makeup.
Yeah.
Like I'm like,
hair done.
Yeah.
Lunch is packed. Yeah. All of it.
One day I remember getting to work and someone's like, I think you have like graham crackers on your shoulder. I was like, is that all? Like I made it here with just that? Woohoo.
Not bad for the day.
Yeah. So speaking of kids, I mean, what kind of challenges did you find when you start having kids and like mixing that into your career?
Yeah, it's it's a challenge because your focus and your time is split. I realized very quickly as a working mom, I have to get super efficient with my time, and I have to have my calendar and it's got to be in check, and I have to follow it. And certainly things pop up both at home and at work, and you have to respond to them right away. You don't always get to plan and calendar everything. And for me, I find that it's a constant reprioritization. So, I sign on for the day after getting the kids off. And I just kind of look at my calendar for the day and I'm like, okay, all right, I have the prioritization. I know what's going on. And then by 10 o'clock, all of that has changed. Maybe kid needs to get picked up because of a fever. Okay, can't do that meeting at that time. I'm going to have to move it, which means this other one's going to have to get moved to next week because it's less of a priority. So it's being honest too, because I've also tried to be dishonest with myself and that hasn't worked. Like, absolutely, I can get all this done by Friday. Yep, not a problem. And then reality hits and you're like, I'm not even close to getting there. Like I'm still 2 days behind. So I think, being honest and just constantly reprioritizing and, but also, at the end of the day, remembering that family just has to come first. It just has to come first. No one ever, grows old and they're like, man, I'm so glad I left my kid at school sick, I mean, and I am very motivated. I'm very career driven. So sometimes it's hard for me to say, I need to step back. I need to shut down for the night. I could keep going some nights. But forcing yourself to keep family first, I think, is really, really key.
Yeah. Or sometimes yourself.
And yourself. Yes. That downtime is important and it's needed. And my best ideas have never come sitting in front of a laptop. It's been doing something else. It's been walking, hanging out with friends, weekends where maybe I'm not really doing anything, or maybe I'm just, running errands. Like that's when I think of things, just a way, not even trying to have ideas. That's when they flow, and that time is really important.
And you know what I found though, just going back on like being flexible, is I used to have this fear that if you had to move or change something due to something that came up, whether professionally or personally, you would be looked down upon or judged for it. And I think I came from a place because at the time I probably was, like, for the position I was in at that time. And now I'm very pleasantly surprised that I feel like the majority of people are very understanding of all the extra things that pop up when things have to shuffle around. And maybe it's a product of just working amongst and along a lot of women, and they might understand those, like, that pull a little bit better. But it helped me realize that it's not a catastrophe if I have to move this, this thing because I have this other thing that, like, I have to get my kids on the bus. Even with courts, I have found that even they understand when you're like, hey, it's supposed to snow tonight and we have a 9 a.m. hearing and there might be a delay at school. I don't know how I'm going to drive an hour and a half and get there on time if it's snowing and there's a delay at school. And the court's usually like, oh yeah, good point. We can move that to Zoom, but 10 years ago, I probably would never ask that question. I'd be like, I'm going. Just plowing through the snow and I'm going to be there.
Yeah. And I think as I'm thinking about it, there's a few elements for us three, right, on the call. So one is that we're women, and women, I think by nature, just we can't ever feel like, we can move anything or say no. I think it's just something that just tends to happen for whatever reason. It's just we have this innate sometimes gene, I don't know what it is, but to people please and to be there and to not miss anything and to be perfect. And whether it's culture or how we were raised or we just feel that way, whatever it is, I think it that tends to happen. And men too, I don't want to exclude them, but I think especially for women that tends to happen. But I also think law school teaches you, it's obviously very competitive. They rank you. You have, the bell curve with the with the grades. So all of those things combined, you're like, no, I just got to get it done. I got to get it done. We know that there was no extensions in law school. Like, if you didn't show up to your exam, that was it. You failed the class because it was all based on that one grade at the end. So that's hard when that has been drilled into you for year after year after year. That is really a hard mentality to get out of. And I'm still that way. I'm still like, oh my gosh, I can't move this meeting, there's no way, when in reality I can move it. It's okay. So I actually can't be on the meeting because I have to go pick up a sick child, or because there's snow and I can't. Not only can I not leave the house, but I can't have anyone come over because there's snow. So, it's hard though. It's hard. And I know I get very uncomfortable when I have to move things. I'm trying to be better about it. That's my own goal for this year is trying to be a little less stressed out about having to do that. But it can be very hard to get out of that mentality.
It is. And even like my kids play sports, and I know Meghan's do as well. And my daughter had a game that was an hour and 15 minutes away yesterday. And my husband's like, you can't go. He's like, how are you going to make it there? Then be back. And my son started hockey last night. And he's just like, it's okay if you miss one of her games. Like you need, so you have to be okay to, and it wasn't for work. It would be one, but it was for another. Like you're trying to just bounce the wall, and like you just have to. I'm trying to teach myself just to let it be okay.
Yeah,
it is hard to balance those competing activities though, because they're like, well, everything has to be fair.
100%.
And I don't know about in your house, but the girls are always like, I want you to come to my game, not daddy. He always tells me what I did wrong and how to fix it.
Well, yes, that is the dad thing. Like,
and I mean, it's great because I don't know enough about basketball to tell them like, hey, maybe next time try this. And he really is so kind when he tries to tell them, but they're just like, girls.
only tell me the good things.
Yeah.
I always try to only say the good things though, because I'm like, what good is it gonna do if I'm like I and like, what do I know too? So I'm like always like, you look great. And they're like, no, I didn't. I was like, okay, well, you look great in my eyes.
You don't know anything.
And in fairness, about many things I don't, but I can still say you look great. Probably could hustle more though. I don't know. I don't say that. I just think that in my head. Because that's one thing I can see.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and so your daughter's 8. So what is she doing? What are her? Because this is when it starts.
This is when it starts. I have an 8-year-old Cecilia and 4-year-old son Brady,
Okay.
and Cece, she, I I see a lot of myself in her. She's very driven. She's already a very hard perfectionist. So I'm like, oh man, that was probably my fault. I'm sorry
Yeah.
about that quality. But she's very driven, and she won the state invention convention for Connecticut. So
Wow.
in June, we're actually going to Dearborn, Michigan, where she's going to compete with the U.S. National Invention Convention. She's so
crazy.
smart. She's such a little
Wow.
engineer.
Love it.
Unfortunately, she probably won't go into insurance because she's going to be doing like way cool things with
Yeah.
whatever. But she's great, and so. Because I work from home a lot, when she gets home from school, sometimes like she'll come in, she'll wave if I'm on, if I'm on a video call, I'll see her kind of like wave from the corner, and I'm like, hey, I'm on a call. And but I try to remember like she's watching, like she is watching. So how I talk about other people, how I talk about our business partners, how I even talk about myself, I try to be very cognizant that little eyes are watching, because if I'm putting myself down, if I'm putting other people down, she's going to think that's okay, and I don't want that for her at all. So and my son at some point will start to pick up on these things too. So just watching, and keeping myself in check, with the way I speak to people, and the way I speak about myself, I think is really big.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and that's amazing that like she's like that all in on engineering at 8. That's crazy. Love it.
She's so smart. I'm so jealous. I'm like, where did all this come from? This is cool. This is really cool.
Well, and also cool that there's that opportunity for her already, because that wasn't the case for us at all.
No,
So,
not at all.
Well, Courtney, we are just about out of time, but before we let you go, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give young Courtney?
Put in the reps. No one talks about the reps. We always talk about getting promoted. We always talk about earning more money and, reaching whatever milestone, that we have that we want to reach. And a lot of work goes into that, a lot of unseen work, to get to where I am today, which has been my goal. I always wanted to climb, the claims leadership ladder. There was work at night. There was work at 5 a.m. There was work on weekends. There was going to tons of events, whatever I could attend, and meeting people. And so, not that you can always do that. You're not always going to be putting in late nights, early mornings, but know that sometimes you have to do that. And we see all the time on social media, like all these great things happening, but there's a lot of work that went into that we don't see. They didn't just come into this role. They didn't just reach this level of leadership or whatever. Like, a lot went into it. So do the reps. Fall in love with the process if you can, and know that you'll get there, and and just remember to treat people at a bare minimum with respect, but if you can make them feel positive, feel good about themselves, feel that they've been heard, if you can bring that to the conversation, that's only going to bring you even farther.
Yeah, I love that advice. And it's like advice that I give my kids all the time. I send them so many Instagram reels about like the behind the scenes work, because I think they both want to be like superstars without like putting in the behind the scenes work. So that it's always a theme that I'm sending them about reps.
Yes.
And talking about putting reps in. And for them, it actually means actual repetitions.
Well,
For
it's
sure.
so funny because before we started recording, we were talking about what Peloton workout we all did today, and I did a run with Robin, and that was actually like the theme of her run was talking about like if you want a life hack or a shortcut, she's like go read a book, but if you want to learn, if you want to run, you got to put it in step by step by step, and so it's the same kind of. Sometimes their motivational speeches are a little much for me, but that one's way good, so I'm glad that you like hammered it home.
Yeah. And Robin, if you're listening, we'd like to have you come on.
Yay, Robin, come on.
There you are.
Better invite me to that episode. I want to be included.
Well, Courtney, it was an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I love having another Connecticut native on too. It's just a little slice of home.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a great time.
Yes, always is. And I love to hear it. So, of course, all our listeners out there, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to Claims Never Sleep. You can find us on your favorite streaming platform as well as YouTube. And thanks for tuning in.
This is the Claims Never Sleep podcast, presented by Cruiser Mitchell, with your host, Meghan Henry.